Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Betty Chen. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has ordered military preparedness, saying that if the enemy opts for military confrontation, North Korea will deal a death blow to the enemy without hesitation by mobilizing all means in its possession. With tensions between North and South Korea rising, how will the recent South Korean parliamentary elections affect the already tense relations between the two Koreas? Joining us today are Dr. Chiew-Ping, East Asian International Relations Caucus co-founder and National Chengchi University Institute of International Relations visiting fellow, and Dr. Chyungly Lee, National Chengchi University Institute of International Relations professor and fellow. A warm welcome to both of you on the show.
Thank you so much.
According to a report by North Korea's KCNA on April 11th, on the day of the South Korean elections, Kim Jong-un, along with senior party, government, and military leaders, inspected the Kim Jong-il University of Military and Politics. During his visit, Kim said that geopolitical instability in surrounding countries is more reason than ever to be prepared for war. And he also stated, once the enemy opts for military confrontation, we will not hesitate to use any means necessary to annihilate them. So let's start with the conversation today. So professors, how do you view Kim Jong-un's order for military preparedness? And do you think that this is related to the upcoming summit between South Korea along with the United States and Japan? Professor Wu.
Thank you so much for the question. So under Kim Jong-un's rule since 2012, he has been steadily increased military capability of North Korea. So especially in the past few years, military exercise from North Korea is actually held quite frequently. So especially during the US-ROK military exercises. And for this year, particularly Kim Jong-un himself actually inspect the North Korean military exercise, military drill, so to oversee the military preparedness. So those statements actually illustrated North Korea's military strategy that is mainly to deter both the United States and South Korea from launching a war towards North Korea.
You just mentioned that Kim Jong-un personally inspected the military this year, so does it pose any important significance?
I think it is the increased tit-for-tat military provocations between the North and South Korea. So whenever US-ROK have any military actions and responses, North Korea will retaliate in kind.
So I think people are quite concerned about the rising tensions in the Korean Peninsula. Moving on, could this declaration foreshadow more extreme military actions? Professor Lee.
Okay, as we know that he mentioned, the preparation will not be preemptive, but only responsive, right? In other words, Kim Jong-un will only start the war in response to any military actions. But the thing is how to interpret as a military or war started. So there is a risk. Okay, there's a risk, but not necessarily lead to war yet. And so more or less, I think Kim wanted to use this as a bargaining chip to show the strong resolution. If you know that you probably will not win the war, then you have to show strong resolution to deter the military actions from the other side. That's my interpretation.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you see that, Professor Wu?
Yeah, I do think that North Korea doesn't want a war. As he's still focusing on strengthening its military capability, for example, and also the US and South Korea wouldn't want to risk this, the economic security, for example, for a destructive war at the moment.
And earlier this year, North Korea changed its policy, declaring South Korea an enemy state and ordered the demolition of the Arch of Reunification in Pyongyang. So talking about this important historical landmark, Arch of Reunification, professors, could you please tell us a bit more about the historical background, its significance, and what does it mean by demolishing such important landmark?
So the Arch of Reunification was built amidst the very positive atmosphere on the Korean Peninsula when North and South Korean leaders met for the first time between Kim Dae-jung and also Kim Jong-il as they held a summit in 2000. So the Arch was built in 2001. So it is significant because Kim Jong-un basically denied his father's strategy or national policy. And by denouncing South Korea as a brotherhood nation to be unified in the future, North Korea also effectively denying South Korea's unification strategy and their unification ministry, even though South Korean unification ministry still say unification is possible, but it is proven to be very difficult from now on.
So could you please further elaborate by demolishing or by dismantling the unification ministry? Does it mean that for now, North Korea, under Kim Jong-un's leadership, there's no hope for reunification in his administration?
I think Kim Jong-un himself do take symbolism quite seriously. So whichever policy pronouncement that he has been making since 2012, he has implemented almost all of them. So I do think it is a very strong signal, especially aiming towards South Korea.
What do you see, Professor Lee?
I think the arch of reunification, if you look at the arch, there are, say, 3 principles. So the 3 principles for reunification is independently, unitedly, and also peacefully. Okay. So since he has renounced the choice of reunification, then there's no need for those 3 principles. It means nothing anymore. And so we don't have to talk about whether use arm to unify or use peaceful resolution or solutions to reunifications. So I think it reflects a young generation's thought probably. Yeah, it's more that I don't have to follow the old steps, traditional steps, but be more pragmatic, since both sides are building their military strengths. While he probably sees no hope for peaceful unification, and also a lot of external forces involved in this building up the military strength here. So probably will not be independently or just between both of them since change. So be more practical.
So by demolishing this important landmark, you said 3 principles: independently, unitedly, peacefully. Probably he just wants to destroy all these important symbolism as mentioned, right?
Right. And but you know, being pragmatic doesn't mean necessarily going to war, right? So he is being more pragmatic and looking at the things differently. Yeah.
So the removal of the Arch of Reunification and the official dissolution of the institutions promoting unification with North Korea, along with a constitutional amendment that officially designates South Korea as the primary foreign enemy, signify Kim Jong-un's abandonment of North Korea's long-standing goal of peaceful reunification with South Korea. So both of you professors have studied the relations on the Korean Peninsula for many years. So we do see that Kim Jong-un is trying to take extreme measures against not just South Korea, but also against the world. And do you think that now for South Korea, Yoon Suk-yeol's focus on strengthening its relationship with U.S. and also with Japan and also other allies will contribute to a deadlock between the relations among the two Koreas?
I think from Kim Jong-un's personal experiences, having dealt with the United States and South Korea, different governmental leaders, so he did found that there is, as Professor Lee just now has explained, pragmatism is not there. So every time the new president is elected, so the previous policy would be overruled or abandoned. So he don't see meaningful engagement with the 2 governments anymore, and therefore decided to pursue no unification, forego that option, so that he can have a more consistent policy implementation, especially in regards to military capability development.
So let me take a step back. If Kim Jong-un does not want unification, what exactly does he want?
Well, continue deterring South Korea and the United States from attacking North Korea. So not only they have the nuclear weapons, they also have a more formidable military capability right now. So as the United States and South Korea continue to strengthen theirs, so Kim Jong-un's worried is that Yoon Suk-yeol government especially has even escalated the U.S.-South Korea alliance to a trilateral together with Japan. So it's a form of containment also, and he felt that he couldn't trust any of those countries to pursue any benign or a peaceful approach towards North Korea.
So, Professor Lee, do you also agree that this is a way of containment among South Korea and also other allies, US and Japan, to fight against North Korea?
Sure. I totally agree with that. But you know, I think we have to think about currently. I think there are a lot of contradictory gestures. If you, at the one hand, you want to be peaceful, you make peaceful unifications, but on the other hand, you are building your military strength. So renounce the possibility of reunification, kind of make the things straight. Okay, we will just do whatever in our benefits to sustain our survival and development in North Korea, right? So kind of to make the policy more reasonable and also without any concerns about this peaceful reunification stuff. So that's what I read here. But I think Kim has to understand that U.S.-South Korea military alliance relations, right? So we know that Biden has this Indo-Pacific strategy and focus more on integrated deterrence strategies. In that sense that the closer military ties between the old alliance that's a must for Biden's administration's military strategy right now. So this one thing leads to another. So to some extent, I do think that the increasing military ties between U.S. and South Korea, or plus Japan, exacerbate the situation in North Korea, in Korean Peninsula. Yeah.
But it seems that this will be the strategy adopted by South Korea, that is to keep deepening its relationship with its like-minded allies to fight against North Korea. So we understand that for two different states or countries that are in conflict, maintaining a level of communication might be necessary to resolve the conflict. However, the hotline at the Panmunjom between the two Koreas is now completely disconnected. So what role does this hotline play in maintaining relations between the two countries, Professor Wu?
Yeah, so hotline channel usually established in the region and between countries that have very high probability for military conflicts. So even between India and Pakistan, they are actually actively relying on hotline communication, especially when the tension is high. In the case of North-South Korea, interestingly, they don't really default on the hotline communication, and actually during the period when the tension is high, they don't actually talk to each other. So in the case of Panmunjom hotline, I think the military forces, especially from the South Korean side and the United Nations Command, they would try to relay the messages, for example, but whether the North Korean side will reciprocate or respond is another matter.
How do you see the disconnection of the hotline, Professor
It's a
Lee?
pity, I think. I think they should assume that doesn't matter what the real function for the hotline, but from crisis management or from the viewpoint of preventive diplomacy, this is a very important measure when both countries are get into tense, escalating the tension. I think it's very important to keep the hotline available.
So now let's move on to another aspect. On April 8th, South Korea has successfully launched the satellite for military reconnaissance, and they have plans to launch more satellites into the orbit. So how might the escalating rivalry between the two Koreas from the ground to space affect the subsequent development? Professor Lee.
When they launch the satellite in the space, it moves the attention into another level, right? So it's no longer just for tit for tat strategies. It's also create another space, reflect more capability, capacity building stuff there. So, but the great powers supporting behind matters, because I don't think North Korea have sufficient technology to sustain the space competition. So whether Russia or China will support North Korea will be a key observation.
What's your view on this, Professor Hu?
Well, in the past, North Korea's satellite launches usually ended in failure, but in recent years, they have achieved quite considerable successes. So actually following this April 8th South Korean satellite launch, so as we speak, North Korea is now prepared to launch the next spy satellite. So I think space competition between the two countries is going to be intensified. And even though as of the last analysis coming from the US agency saying that North Korean spy satellite imagery is still not as advanced as the other nations, but given their capturing of images from space of their ICBM tests, it shows that not only the images from their spy satellites are clear, so it also working and functioning very well. So this means reconnaissance from North Korea onto South Korea would be much more receive better coverage than before. So this is something that South Korea might want to improve upon.
Definitely, we can see the competition or even a rivalry between the two Koreas are not limited to just military. And also in terms of election interference, we have seen some recent examples. The recent South Korean elections are seen as a midterm assessment of Yoon Suk-yeol's administration, which faced challenges and criticism, including ineffective economic revitalization, disputes over controlling spring onion prices, and tense relationship with North Korea. And the election resulted in a minor governing party and major opposition scenario. So how does the result of this election impact the relations between the two Koreas, Professor Hu?
Yeah, I think it affects South Korea domestic politics mostly. So as Yoon Suk-yeol's many of his chiefs are resigning. So and as of now, today, they have yet to announce new Prime Minister and National Security Advisor, for example. So this affects South Korea domestically much more than on South Korea's foreign policy, because in fact, Yoon Suk-yeol's foreign policy is very well received by allies like the United States, Japan, and beyond. So highly likely South Korea will retain their foreign policy direction, but probably Yoon Suk-yeol would introduce more domestic measures to improve domestic support rating.
So Professor Hu believes that it has more impact on the domestic politics than on the situation between South Korea and North and also with the world. What's your assessment, Professor Lee?
I agree with Professor Hu, because the foreign policy does not need approval from the National Assembly. Okay, but I do think that the president has to devote some of the attention to domestic politics from now on. Otherwise, he will not be successful. All his party will just abandon him to find another candidate. He has only one term, right? And if right now the approval rate is very low, and also they lost the battle in National Assembly, then for PPP, the government, the party, they probably have to think about who is the next candidate. And since nobody likes Yoon, probably we just put him down a little bit. So he has to put more attention to domestic politics. And that one probably will slow down his foreign policies. But this is the track is on already. Yeah.
And talking about elections, I mean, now one of the most important hot topics when it comes to election is election interference. Do you think that North Korea has interfered in South Korea's election this time? And if they do you think that the result meets their expectations?
I think in the past, maybe North Korea intervention might have impact, but nowadays I think, especially the younger generation in South Korea, they don't really buy North Korea's propaganda, for example. So I think North Korea's propaganda would aim at North Korean sympathizers, which is not in huge number nowadays as well. So what impact exactly would be to yield pressure on people who may support to reduce tension by producing more engagement-oriented policy towards North Korea rather than outright rejecting engaging North Korea like the current government is doing.
What's your assessment, Professor Lee?
I don't think North Korea did some intervention in this election, even if it did, still doesn't work. Okay, so but for the oppositional party Democratic Party, the leader, also condemned North Korea's decision on renouncing the reunification, and also call for resumption of the hotline there. So, so the opposition does not necessarily stand with Kim. Okay, so I think the effects were very minimal.
So we talk about the alliance between South Korea with, say, the U.S. and also Japan. So let's now move our focus to the ally of North Korea, China. On New Year's Day 2024, Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un exchanged New Year greetings and jointly announced 2024 as the year of China-North Korea friendship, following the South Korean election and on the eve of the summit from April 11th to 13th. Zhao Leji, a member of China's National People's Congress Standing Committee, visited North Korea at Pyongyang's invitation, attending the opening ceremony of the Year of China-North Korea Friendship. So the visit by Mr. Zhao marks the first high-ranking visit by Chinese official to the North at the invitation after the pandemic, and his visit there also paves the way for the possible meeting between Xi Jinping and also Kim Jong-un. So what do you make of the trip on this special occasion, Professor Hu?
So actually, this high-level visit from China to North Korea also follow from last year, where there is another NPC Standing Committee member also visiting North Korea amidst the 75th anniversary of the Korean War. So I think two back-to-back high-level visits do signify that China doesn't want to be left out in terms of Korean Peninsula affairs, and especially given the fact that North Korea is now working very closely with Russia. So this brings back again the memory of during the Cold War, when Soviet Union and China were also the backers of North Korea in international affairs, and we see the same pattern being repeated again as of now.
What do you make of the visit, Professor Lee?
I think from the outcome, I didn't see any significant development. But as you say, that probably paved the way for Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un's meeting later. But we do see the role of China is important here, okay? Because as China wanted to be a responsible stakeholder in the world politics, China will not follow Kim Jong-un's policy all the time, especially on these nuclear issues, right? And also China has this, also wanted to have a summit with Japan and South Korea very soon. So kind of overlapping position for China to really make something. So I think we have to keep observing what's next China will do. Yeah, but I think there is a chance for China to play some role here.
So you talk about the possible role that China can play in influencing, say, Kim Jong-un and also North Korea. And we do know that two countries are trying to forge closer relationship. How will that impact the regional geopolitics in this regard, Professor?
So at the United Nations Security Council, they maintain a sanctions committee that is now vetoed by Russia. So the panel of experts on sanctioning North Korea would be dissolved by the end of this month. So that means there is no more international body in monitoring North Korea's sanctions breaching actions on the international arena. So China was often accused for abiding North Korea in terms of sanctions evasions activities. However, this time we see that it was Russia that created the damage. So China remained a very important political support to North Korea in terms of trying to ensure that both the United States and South Korea doesn't wage war against North Korea. At the same time, North Korea needs China in terms of economic dependence and also trade, as China provide tremendous economic and financial aid to North Korea, especially after the pandemic.
Professor Lee, how do you see this?
So I think I don't mean to ask Kim to understand the situation here, but one thing leads to another. But I do think that North Korea's right now the position, they have to say something. They have to do something in response to the escalating, enhancement of this U.S. alliance. Right, so this can be expected, but the role of China is also very important here. We also notice that U.S., Japan, and South Korea are in UN Security Council at the same time this year. So this will be a very interesting year to observe, see whether China can really do something or exercise the influence in the council. Yes.
So my final quick question, we understand that in November, the US is going to have its election and former President Trump might make a comeback. And we also know that Kim Jong-un seems to have very friendly relations with Donald Trump. So if Trump gets elected, what is going to happen?
So actually, the Hanoi summit in 2019 greatly embraced Kim Jong-un and his elites in Vietnam. So I'm not sure how North Korea feel about Trump right now. So perhaps Trump might offer another olive branch to talk. It's up to Kim Jong-un to decide whether there is any meaningful interaction with Trump anymore. But highly likely, Trump is going to have a very huge impact and may sway actually Yoon Suk-yeol government's policy towards North Korea.
What's your view on this, Professor Lee?
I think definitely Kim will favor Trump over Biden, because what Biden is doing right now is really enhance the defense relations with South Korea and Japan, and that's something cannot be tolerated by Kim, right? So, but whether Trump will be better, I have question mark there. But you know, definitely if Biden's administration continue his defense policy and Indo-Pacific strategy here, then I will not be in favor of Kim. Yeah.
Well, the only thing we know about, say, political figures like Trump and Kim is that they're unpredictable. So we don't know what's going to happen. But that's all the time we have for today. So thank you so much for joining us. If you like our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching our show today. Stay safe and see you next time.